Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Storyist. Sometimes we automatically judge people just by the way they look, and we forget that each one of us has our own dream that is not measured by the appearance of our clothes. Today, I will be telling you a story about a homeless girl who entered a store and asked people to buy her soap. What happens in the end will shock you. Stay until the end of the video to find out what happened. Emily is a young girl who lives in the streets. She once had a roof over her head until she turned 12 years old, when she couldn't bear the pain of her bruises anymore caused by her parents' abuse. One day, when she was playing outside their tiny home, her father went home from his construction work reeking of alcohol. The smell of alcohol was so strong that it was like her father bathed in it. This smell alone made Emily fear for herself, because she knew too well what would follow. Her father used to beat her repeatedly every time he would go home drunk, and this was almost every other night. Then, every morning, her mother would beat her up as well whenever she would mess something up, like not being on time washing the dishes or not doing the household chores right. She knew their financial status was below capable of upholding a family, but she also never believed that pouring all of their anger to her was a good thing to do. She planned many times to escape, but she couldn't do so. Not because she was afraid of a life full of uncertainties, but because she feared for her sister's safety. When Emily was 5, she had a baby sister that her parents treated the way they did to her. They neglected the baby, did not feed her on time, and left her alone in the house with only Emily by her side. But Emily loved her sister dearly, so she learned how to care for her sister at a young age. While her parents neglected her sister, she showered her with pure love and admiration. She told her bedtime stories. She shared every little toy she found in the trash with her. She was basically the baby girl's parents. When Emily turned 12, she finally found the courage to leave their home. She thought her sister was old enough to leave their house with her. One day, when both of their parents were at work, she managed to grab all her and her sister's belongings into a backpack, and they both flew away from the house. For months, Emily struggled to live in the streets with her sister. Everything was new to her. She never knew it was hard to live in the streets alone, and more so when she had a 7-year-old child with her. One day, Emily went inside a store. Once she got inside, she was embarrassed for a moment of her clothes. She only had 7 pairs of clothes that she had been wearing each day every week, but she couldn't wash them often because she would only sneak inside parks to get water from fountains. Her clothes were all dirty and her face and hair smelled like she hadn't showered for weeks, because she really hadn't. But she was determined enough to beg for that specific thing she went inside for. A blonde lady in full makeup walked towards her, frowning. Excuse me, lady," she asked with a mocking tone. Emily looked at her and smiled, but the blonde girl did not smile back. "What are you doing here?" the blonde girl asked. "Oh, I was actually thinking if you could buy me a piece of soap," Emily asked politely. The blonde girl looked at her for a moment before laughing really hard. "You want me to buy you soap? Who are you, my mother?" the girl replied condescendingly. Emily couldn't do anything but bow her head in embarrassment. She already knew what she was getting into before she entered the store. But harsh words still sting her painfully, even though she was used to mocks and laughters all her life. She tried to straighten up and ignore how the blonde girl treated her. Instead, she walked through the store again, trying to convince the shoppers inside to buy her soap. Emily spent almost all day asking every single shopper in the store to buy her soap. But no one ever cared, even just a little. Some would even look at her in disgust because of her dirty clothes, and some would cover their noses whenever she was near. She was treated like garbage, but she was determined enough not to leave the store. She caught a glimpse of the blonde girl from the cashier register, and she caught her laughing at her. Still, she tried to ignore her and continued begging shoppers to buy her soap. As the sun went down, no one tried to help her. So she did one last thing before leaving the store. She went again to the cashier's area and talked to the blonde girl. "Please, if you have any spare or those rejected by the factory, I'd be willing to take it," Emily hopelessly begged. "Look, we don't have any of those, but if we do, I'd gladly pour it all over you because you stink," the blonde girl viciously replied. Emily got hurt by the words, and she realized she didn't really belong there. She thought people would be a little kinder to her because she was just a girl, but everyone else was just as rude as her parents. She was about to leave the store when she saw a man in his 40s browsing through the soap section. She knew it was her one last chance to try her luck before the store closed. She went over to the man and tugged on his sleeves, hoping for the best. The man was surprised to see a dirty girl behind her, but he smiled at her immediately. He politely asked Emily what she wanted, and Emily expressed her intentions carefully. She was so afraid that the man would distance himself from her, but when she saw the man's radiant smile, she suddenly felt hope. The man asked her to choose a soap from the rack, and the man brought her chosen soap to the counter. When the blonde cashier girl saw this, she frowned at the man. "Seriously, you're going to give that to her? That girl had been here all day," she said. This surprised the man, and he asked Emily why she was begging for soap the whole day. Emily explained to him that it was her sister's first day at school the following week, and she had nothing to wear. But they found a used uniform in a trash can, but it was so dirty that her sister couldn't wear it. "I knew what it was like, getting treated badly because of my dirty clothes. And I don't want that to happen to my sister, too. I want her to love going to school because she has friends," Emily said. The man was moved by her determination to send her little sister to school, despite the fact that they only live on the streets. The blonde girl was also stunned as she heard Emily's story. She remembered her own older sister, how she struggled day in, day out, just to send her to school and have a proper education. She apologized to Emily for treating her the way she did the whole day and promised to make amends. When the man left the store and Emily finally got her soap, the blonde cashier girl walked over to her and whispered, "I'll tell you what. Every weekend you come to this shop and I will wash your clothes with you. All soaps are on me." Emily was so happy, and eventually the blonde girl invited her and her sister to live with her, just behind the soap shop. That's all for today. We hope you enjoyed the story, and we'll see you in the next video.